Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening po sa lahat. Saan man po kayong panig ng mundo naroon. Welcome to our 160th episode of the Stop COVID Deaths webinar series brought to you by the University of the Philippines. Thank you for being part of our credible online community. And for those who have discovered us just for today po, for the very first time, welcome po. Sana po marami po kayong matutunan sa ating webinar for today. In an era defined by technological leaps, traditional educational paradigms are undergoing profound transformations, including medical education. From personalized learning journeys tailored to every student's strengths and needs to AI-driven insights that revolutionize curriculum design. For today, we will unravel the transformative potential of artificial intelligence in medical education, addressing both the promises and the challenges of integrating artificial intelligence, exploring questions like whether AI could one day replace teachers entirely or if it will augment their role, and how artificial intelligence can reshape the way we assess learning outcomes. I'm Dr. Raymond Francis Sarmiento, Director of the National Telehealth Center, National Institutes of Health, University of the Philippines, Manila. Always a pleasure to be with all of you during our regular Friday, and always looking forward to our Fridays because I get to share hosting duties with our adjunct research faculty at the National Telehealth Center. Also, international renowned public health communications expert, Dr. Susie Pineda Mercado. Dr. Susie?
Hi, good afternoon, Raymond, and magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Great to be here on a Friday with all of you. Got a great topic and a great speaker. I'd like to welcome, first of all those of you who are here with us on the live broadcast on Zoom, and all of those who are watching via live streaming on TVUP YouTube channel, as well as the UP System Facebook page, TVUP Facebook page, Stop COVID Deaths Facebook page, and of course, all those watching from TVUP Signal TV channel 101. Of course, there are those who are now watching on the playback, and we recognize that not everyone can come at lunchtime, but being on the playback is just as good, and most of the time I like to watch the playback to get more of the details of our discussion. This week on Stop COVID Deaths, we have the expert. Oh, di ba Raymond, maganda yan? The expert on telehealth, none other than Dr. Raymond Francis Sarmiento, who is the director of the National Telehealth Center at the National Institutes of Health of UP Manila. Our reactor is another person who's well known in the field of information communication technology, Dr. A.D. Ace Domingo, who serves as program director of the MBA in Health program at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business, as well as the innovation lead of the ASMPH Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health Center for Research and Innovation. The synthesis and closing will be delivered by Dr. Marie Dion Sakdalan, who is the UPPGH coordinator for training. So before we go into anything else, Raymond, nakabarong ka today. What's going on? What's going on?
So me and Dr. AD, we're organizers po of the first HL7 Philippines Summit. So HL7 Philippines is a non-profit organization which is the country affiliate for the Philippines po, of the HL7 International. It's a standard used for communicating or exchanging data between health information systems po. So when you see, let's say, you want to have your hospital information system or medical record to talk with your laboratory system or radiology system, a lot of those go through HL7 messaging po. So, and that's what we're advocating for the Philippines.
Oh, so that's why you're marangal si Raymond ngayon. Mukha siyang talagang TOIM awardee and ready for the discussion today. Okay, so as you've noticed in our opening billboard, we call it still Stop COVID Deaths, but we talk about all kinds of topics. And part of our programming for every Friday is updates, because we know you want to be informed of what's happening in health and medicine and the rest of the world. And it's for this reason that we bring you the news update.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Susie, for our very first news update. The the IBM, yung pong malaki pong technology company, they have mentioned that in their new study, at least 40% of the global workforce, or about 1.4 billion of the total 3.4 billion work-capable individuals, will have to be reskilled in the next 3 years. Ayon na po ito sa pag-aaral ng computing giant na si IBM. The figures came from a joint survey between IBM Institute for Business Value and Oxford Economics of about 3,000 global C-suite executives across 20 industries and 28 countries between December 2022 and January 2023. Huge majority of those surveyed, 87% po, they agreed that reskilling and upskilling po will be necessary as job roles will be augmented rather than outright replaced by artificial intelligence, with entry-level jobs in 2025 experiencing the heaviest impact. So capturing and identifying skills across the organization remains the very first step in order to later decide what areas are needed to be filled with new talent and which areas might be better suited for internal mobility rather than new hiring. What about you, Dr. Susie?
Okay, so in the news, WHO launched the first WHO Civil Society Commission and held the inaugural meeting of its steering committee in Geneva today. The commission provides for the first time the ability to channel advice and recommendations in a more structured and systematic manner from civil society to the World Health Organization on health priorities and related issues. The historic role of civil society organizations in bringing about change in public health is well known and very much appreciated. While WHO has a long-standing tradition of working with civil society organizations, this establishment of the Commission takes the collaboration to a new level. And so that's our news for today. We'll be back next week with more news for you on the News Update. Okay, and we are back. So we have some announcements. I think, wait, let me just see. Okay, so of course we go through our person on the street. So typically, TVUP will ask our audience about the topic, and that helps us situate our discussion based on what people commonly think about the issue that we're talking about. So Raymond, go ahead and introduce it.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. For today's person on the street video, we set our discussion into context by putting in this very, very short video, asking the questions to our interviewees. Ano po ang pumapasok sa isip ninyo kapag naririnig ang katagang artificial intelligence? Sa tingin po ba ninyo ay makatutulong ito sa edukasyon? Ano-ano ang mga posibleng positibo o negatibong epekto nito sa development ng mga mag-aaral? At sa tingin nyo po ba ay mapapalitan ang mga guro sa silid-aralan ng artificial intelligence? Magagamit nyo po ba ito para mapabuti ang pag-aaral ng estudyante? At ano po ang inyong mga agam-agam sa paggamit ng artificial intelligence sa pag-aaral, lalo na sa medisina at sa kalusugan? Please watch this.
Narinig ko na yung AI.
Tungkol sa computer.
Yes, I am very much active in the AI discourse. In fact, I have researched about it on a surface level.
It's like a simulation of human brain processed by machine, parang ganyan.
Recently, may mga nag-trending kasi na articles na sa UP, yung students daw gumagamit to ng AI sa paggawa ng academic submissions nila.
To some extent, yes, I've used it. And on a deep surface, no. My usage of AI tools mainly revolves around grammar improvements through, I guess we're all familiar of it, in the academy especially, Grammarly, and for plagiarisms for detector, such as Turnitin and any other type of AI for plagiarism score.
Opo, sa tingin ko makakatulong ito. Tulad na lang, ngayon pa lang, di ba kahit wala pang artificial intelligence, malaking tulong na yung nabibigay ng teknolohiya sa mga mag-aaral, sa mga guro, at sa kahit saan pang field.
So yung teacher nag-grant online and hindi masyadong favorable yung response dun sa students na gumamit. And I think they're planning to impose academic sanctions sa students. So dun ko siya unang nalaman. I mean, di ko siya dun unang nalaman, pero doon ko nakita yung unang application niya sa academic setting.
positibo muna tayo. Malaki ang magandang epekto dito sa mga mag-aaral dahil mas open yung resources para sa kanila. Halimbawa, may pinagawa or may kailangan silang i-research. Mas madali nilang magagawa ito dahil matutulungan sila ng teknolohiya, ganito, ganyan. Kaso ang negatibo naman nito, yun nga, di ba, sobrang nag-viral ngayon yung chat GPT, yung AI na kung saan lalagay ka lang ng tanong, tapos pwede kanyang igawa ng essay, mga ganito, ganyan. So, pwedeng masyadong gamitin ito ng mga estudyante para, yun, makatakas sa kanilang mga gawaing paano sa paaralan. So, yun yung negatibong nakikita ko.
It quite alerted me. There is an exhibition in the Hoya space where it exhibited artwork, 10 artworks to be specific, generated through this AI tool called DALL-E, and it got a lot of questions to my head, and that made me really curious about it and to what extent do we use AI, especially in the field of arts.
I think yung nagamit ko ay chat GPT, the link was sent to me, and then I tried out of curiosity lang. I inputted a question, and then yun, nag-provide siya ng answer to my query.
Right now, what's the hot AI or the hottest AI right now is that would be Chat GPT, and specifically for text-based AI. For visual-based AI, there is DALL-E, as we spelled it as DALLE. Yeah, -E.
Nakikita ko sa future na may kakayahan ng artificial intelligence na palitan ng karamihan sa mga trabaho, hindi lang sa ng mga guro sa ating lipunan. Pero hindi dapat, kasi naniniwala ako ng artificial intelligence ay dapat nandyan para maging instrumento natin, hindi para mapalitan tayo, para mas mapagaan ang trabaho natin, buhay natin.
And so it was my first time to see a computer arguing and raising comments about the amendments to the Constitution.
Di ba sa medisina merong ethics na tinatawag, may bioethics na tinatawag, na may human factor pa din dapat. Hindi ako expert, pero yung mga nakikita ko lang sa pelikula, sa mga palabas, pero nangyayari. Halimbawa, may isang nanay na buntis, tapos isa lang yung isa lang yung maililigtas mo sa kanilang dalawa, either yung mother or yung baby. 'Di ba? Parang nakakatakot naman kapag yung artificial intelligence yung hinayaan nating mag-decide kung sino yung maliligtas niya. Sa tingin ko may mga pagkakataon pa rin sa medisina, lalo-lalo sa medisina na hindi dapat mawala yung human factor dahil buhay ang nakasalalay. Kaya dapat ang magdidesisyon nito ay isang tao na may buhay rin.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much, TVUP, for that. It's very, what should I say? Raymond, yung chat GPT, no? Sabi ko nga, okay lang yan kung may kuryente ka. Di ba? Parang, well, I don't know. I have my own views on it. I was working with somebody before who made an outline based on chat GPT. And it was okay. Parang it wasn't bad. But I just didn't feel like, I didn't even know that it was AI. I just said, this is so much blah blah. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking for something that's a little deeper. No, tapos sinabi niya sa akin, nilagay daw niya yun sa chat GPT. So sabi ko, kaya pala di ba? I mean, I wanted to see what your own thoughts were on this, and many times that involves not just what you think or not just logic, but also your emotion and your values. So anyway, I think we're going to talk a lot more about this as we proceed. But Raymond, I think you've got some housekeeping.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Susie, for a little bit of housekeeping po, no? All those who are asking, we've already sent out our certificates of attendance for all of our webinars, 1 to 159. And for those who are asking, even those na pang Climate Change Commission po na webinar, I think that's webinar 150, na sent out na rin po namin iyon. Those who will be receiving the certificates are those who have watched at least 50% of the webinar duration. So if you feel you should have received but did not, please email us at stopcovidets@up.edu.ph. page. For our webinar today, we'll be having a standard panel discussion format, and after our speakers have presented, that will be followed by a Q&A session. But before we delve into the webinar proper, we'll go ahead with our fun quiz segment for today, and this is our cute intro video.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Kumusta na kayo lahat?
Hi, I'm Doc Susie, the mini Doc Susie.
And I'm Doc Radar, the mini Doc Raymond. Are you ready to have fun? Simply open your browser to www.slido.com and enter your code to participate. We will discuss your answers during the panel discussion later on in the program.
We will have it flashing on your screen in a bit, and we look forward to your answers. Masaya at madali lang ito. Join na!
Okay, still funny. Still funny for me, Raymond. Yeah, okay, let's go. Let's go to our
Okay.
please. Go ahead.
So can we have the questions po, okay, not just on Slido but also on the Zoom. For those who are joining us outside of the Zoom, we encourage everyone to participate in this fun quiz. You open up your browsers, you type in sa address bar po slido.com and enter the code 6510096. That's 6510096 for you to be able to participate in our fun quiz segment. We have two questions for today, and for our first question, what is one potential benefit of integrating artificial intelligence into education? Is it A, reducing the need for human teachers entirely? Is it B, providing personalized learning experiences? Is it C, increasing classroom sizes without any changes? And is it D, eliminating the need for student collaboration? Okay, we'd like to take this opportunity po to greet those who are joining us sa Pilipinas po, locally po, no? And thank you so much for really taking the time, even on a holiday, lalo na po if you are from Bulacan and the Metro Manila. Maraming salamat po for granting us this opportunity to showcase this webinar to you. We'd like to greet those who are joining us from the Mariano Marcos Memorial Hospital and Medical Center in Batac, Ilocos Norte, Public Health and Safety Department of the Subic Bay SBMA in Olonga po, Central Philippine University and College of Medicine in Pasig City, Riverside Medical Center Incorporated in Bacolod, Negros Occidental, and Southern Philippines Medical Center in Davao City. There are those who are joining us from Bataan as well, from Los Baños, Laguna, from RPHS Annex 1, Antipolo City. Maraming salamat po. For those who are joining us from University of Rizal System Health Services, from UP Diliman and the Philippine General Hospital, from Ilocos Norte, from Cavite, from Bicol. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. For question number 2, how can AI, artificial intelligence, contribute to educational assessment? Is it A, replacing all traditional forms of assessment? B, providing instant and personalized feedback to students? Is it C, eliminating the need for any kind of assessment? Or is it D, by making all assessments more difficult and time-consuming? Internationally, we're also being viewed po, so thank you to our avid viewers, especially those who are joining us from the Chonin Hospital in Taipei City in Taiwan, from Los Angeles, California in the United States, from Penang, Malaysia, from Oman College of Health Science in Nizwa, Oman, from Al Meswak Dental Clinics in Taif, Saudi Arabia, from Canadian Medical Center in Dammam, Saudi Arabia, and those from the University of Fail in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. New Sinai School and colleges are also mentioned din po. Pahabol from the University of Santo Tomas, Ear, Nose, Throat, Head and Neck Surgery Center. Maraming salamat po. Okay. Over to you, Dr. Susie.
Okay, Raymond, I know that everyone's excited to hear from you. Kasi lugi na ako. 2 beses na yata ako nag-lecture. This is now your turn and your show. And so our speaker today is, I would say, one of our experts in information technology as it's applied to health and medicine. He's director of the National Telehealth Center, National Institutes of Health, University of the Philippines, Manila, and one of the 10 outstanding young men in the Philippines. So please welcome none other than your idol, Dr. Raymond. Raymond, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susie. I'll just share my screen so that everyone can see it. Okay. So the title of my presentation po will be Artificial Intelligence in Medical Education, Unleashing a Paradigm Shift in Future Forward Learning. So a lot of these really will be what has been done today, and what we could expect in the future, and what are the challenges that we need to face and the gaps that we need to address as part of it. Just a general disclaimer that all same is issued are mine alone, and my presentation does not necessarily reflect the position of the University of the Philippines or the Philippine government. Part of my disclosure also declaring no conflicts of interest with any proprietary entities I may mention, and I also have no financial relationships with any manufacturers of any commercial products or services. These are my competing interests, at least for this presentation. Okay, so for this presentation, so what is artificial intelligence? Really, at the heart of it, we want to be able to define what artificial intelligence is, and marami po talagang definition yan. It's essentially having a way to simulate the human intelligence processes by machines, especially by computer systems. It's a way, let's say, for the machines to understand, have the machine's ability to perform cognitive functions that normally we would associate to human mind. So like perceiving, reasoning, learning, interacting with an environment, problem solving, and even exercising creativity. So yun po, and we want to be able to make sure that for those baka masyadong highfalutin po yung part na yon, another definition would be it's the ability of a computer or robot controlled by a computer to do tasks that are usually done by humans because they require human intelligence and discernment. So marami po tayong examples ngayon ng mga artificial intelligence using ng mga technologies or leveraging po these types of technology. So from chess playing computers, si AlphaGo, marami pong pinagdaanan na pinag-aralan yung pong machine na yon to be able to come up with the best suggested move at that particular point in time, given the set of moves that have already been done, as well as what is projected to be the move of their opponent po. So from yung mga simpleng games po to self-driving cars, yung po yung mga inaano po natin. If you are familiar with a group from Boston who is coming up with, I think this parang robotic po na dog, able to come up, let's say, with able to grab objects, able to carry objects from one point to another, whether it's flat ground or whether it's uphill. Those are also have been work that's been done for the better part of the last decade po. So all of those have been using artificial intelligence as part of it. In our evolution of education, sometimes we tend to compare what is happening po with regards to traditional classrooms and comparing it in the evolution that has been done. So very common na po sa atin ngayon, those who are, let's say, teaching the millennials, those who would have their computers open, those who are very much exposed to the flipped classroom methodology. So a lot of those the students have their computers open so that they have their notes open and they have their questions at the ready. So your flipped classroom po is that the lectures are already studied or at least known to the students beforehand, and the questions that they have after they have read those lectures or lessons, yung po yung pag-uusapan inside the classroom. So a lot of those have really evolved over time in the conduct and delivery of education, not just in other countries, but here in the Philippines. That's what they have been doing. And rise of artificial intelligence since November of last year, very important to take note po, no? Not just in healthcare, not just in finance or manufacturing, but also in education. That the fusion of artificial intelligence and education, there's a natural progression to it and offers the potential to personalize your learning experiences, optimize your teaching methodologies, and unlock new frontiers of knowledge. So as artificial intelligence has been gaining power to process vast vast amounts of data and making sense of complex patterns. The integration of education promises a paradigm shift that caters to individual learners. So kung meron pong personalized medicine, personalized treatment po for a particular disease, meron din po personalized learning na gaganap para sa ating mga students and learners, and preparing po yung ating mga trainees, interns, learners for a rapidly changing world. So this was just a month ago. So ChatGPT was found to outscore medical students on complex clinical care examination. So we try to understand po bakit po ba may pagkakataon wherein for certain tasks mas magaling po si ChatGPT na sumagot po sa mga katanungan, lalo na kung may mga questionnaires or surveys, something that we really need to examine even further. And it showed the amazing capabilities of artificial intelligence in analyzing medical texts and offering diagnosis, trying to make sure that are we really evolving or progressing in terms of how we are delivering medical education, or have we sort of stymied or plateaued in terms of delivering that? So recent studies have shown that ChatGPT can successfully handle multiple choice questions po on the USMLE, which is the United States Medical Licensure Exam, which doctors must pass in order to practice medicine. Yung pong authors, and this was a study from Stanford University researchers, they wanted to explore how artificial intelligence could handle yung pong mas mga mahihirap, mga open-ended din po nilang mga questions, and to assess yung clinical reasoning ng mga first year and second year students at Stanford. What they found was that the model on average scored more than 4 points higher than students on the case report portion of the exam. So medyo nakakagulat po iyon, very surprising at how well ChatGPT did on those kinds of free response. So mga free text po yun. So this is where natural language, understanding natural language processing comes into play. Those free response medical reasoning questions exceeding the scores of human test takers. So really, it's not out of the realm in terms of trying to understand, is there a way for us to assess if we are really providing value to the education of the students, and how, if based on the results, how may we tweak those based on those outcomes po. So part of this also is making sure that we have AI and personalized learning. Number one would be adaptive learning. Is the student able to adapt based on the particular feedback that is being given to him or her on real time? Are we able to incorporate intelligent tutoring systems? So what you might consider po moving forward, let's say for those who are trying to hire tutors for math, for science, for, let's say, for advanced mathematics, advanced biology, advanced biochemistry, those may be a thing of the past if the artificial intelligence models that we have right now evolves in such a way that they understand your learning patterns at kung saan po kayo mas nahihirapan po. So for those, let's say, another example that may need to be revisited or may need to shift, yung pong mga nag-aaral po ng kanilang, not just for medical education po, but nag-aaral po ng mga new languages. So as I understand, there was a time wherein those who are from other countries and wanted to learn more English, they would hire Filipinos who are very, very well versed and very well spoken, very well written in terms of the English language. That may be a thing of the past pretty soon, just because of these intelligent tutoring systems, because there may come a time that it may be easier for them, for the students or the learners, to learn more about those languages from the machine rather than a particular human. Personalized recommendations. So let's say if you mention and because ChatGPT obviously is a natural language processing na chatbot, if you are able to communicate with the machine and try to say that you prefer your recommendations to be provided in the bulleted form or in narrative form, or if you wanted to assess your learnings based on let's say MCQ, because that is how you will be assessed by a particular testing agency, those could actually be put forth as well. So data-driven insights, so anything, let's say, if based on repeated tests that you have taken, let's say, paulit-ulit po kayo nag-test chemistry, paulit-ulit po kayo nag-test sa physiology, sa pharmacology, etc. And there are certain aspects, baka in the last 3 exams, you've only scored 43% on the pharmacokinetics part. But in the same set of exams, but focusing on pharmacodynamics, there was a rapid improvement from 44% to 67% to 83%. So those things could really drive you into focusing more on the pharmacokinetics part, if that is your Waterloo, rather than on the pharmacodynamics part. Multimodal learning naman po comes into play, whether if let's say you are more of an audio learner or a visual learner, if you wanted more case reports or case studies to be put into play in your learning, rather than something that's, let's say, very straightforward or didactics. And if, let's say, you're able to share what you wish to see in your own self-assessment test, na parang in the assessment, please provide me with 20 questions that are in case report format, and the questions have to be based on anatomical, let's say, insertions, or if it's an anatomy exam, or the questions will need to go into drug interactions. If it's a pharmacology exam, that will also play a part of it. And the individualized learning paths will also take in effect, because each of us have different methodologies in terms of learning, paces of learning, and how can the machine, artificial intelligence, help you better understand what you are trying to be an expert on, let's say. So let's say if you are doing a rotation on internal medicine, and your sub-rotation topic is on cardiology po, no? So and you're focusing on ECGs, is there a better way for you to be able to interpret electrocardiogram images? So those things come into play, especially if you try to focus those areas that need your help and focus, especially. Okay, so part of this also is making sure that artificial intelligence is able to, let's say, find patterns and make recommendations in your student assessments, because artificial intelligence can analyze student performance data in real time and provide teachers with their own instant feedback. So let's say the role of the teacher here will be making sure that you are on track and on the right path, and trying to see if for this particular set of questions that are sprinkled all throughout your test assessments and different points of time they are being given, are you consistent in terms of answering that particular set of questions? Let's say it's 3 questions. Pare-pareho po ba ang pagsagot ninyo? Meaning, kung mali po kayo sa umpisa, mali po kayo sa dulo pa rin, just to see if there's progress on your end. Or let's say mali po kayo sa umpisa, but gradually you're able to get a higher score and the correct answer if you're shown the question in some other format. So that can be analyzed by artificial intelligence. Another thing would be AI-powered systems being able to detect patterns and provide insights into student performance, not necessarily easily discernible through traditional assessment methods, and making sure that those insights are shared with the students. Obviously, real-time is the goal, and making sure that personalized feedback from AI systems can help students identify areas of strength and weakness in order to improve their learning outcome. So if you're trying to see learning outcome 1 to learning outcome 5, which ones you have been able to, let's say, satisfactorily say that okay na yon, naintindihan nyo siya, mataas yung score ninyo, etc. For those learning outcomes that you still are grappling with or will need more assistance, then that could also form part of what will be focused in your future test questionnaires that's developed by the artificial intelligence systems. But really, there are moves din po before we say that napakadali pong sabihin yan. Is it something that is already here or is it more of future thinking? So those are the questions that we really need to answer. So these 3 recommendations are recommendations made by an education group to national government or to federal government to make sure that those that are let's say biases, maybe incorrect biases or challenges are reduced and mitigated, and how you could more maximize the let's say the good ones or the more accurate ones. So number 1 in the recommendation is that there is a need for government to invest in research that looks into better understanding where and how bias occurs in testing. So there may be times, let's say, that the how the question is formed, how the multiple choice answers are laid out. There's an inherent bias that drives you towards one answer when in fact, if it was written in a much clearer way, then it will be the correct answer will be much more evident. So those types of researches need to be funded and need to be invested in. Number 2, investments also in the development of new kinds of technology-driven assessments. So right now we're talking about, is there a way for us to more accurately discern if this set of questions are really appropriate for your level? That's number 1. Number 2, are they able to answer these questions appropriately and correctly? And number 3, this is where it goes into that outscoring article wherein ChatGPT was able to outscore medical students in the free text clinical diagnosis part of the testing. So are you able to identify ways wherein based on the free text, kahit pagbalik-balik na rin po siya, the same assessment for that particular student and how it was answered by that student is always correct or the same. Number 3 will be investing in teacher professional development. So as mentioned po, no, in the near future, within the next 3 to 5 years, maybe even the next 10 years, there will be an impetus to push for more and let's say better quality in terms of building the capacity, making sure that you're able to build a cadre of teachers, professionals, mentors who are able to effectively use and let's say augment their own assessments, augment their curriculum development using artificial intelligence. Very, very helpful po iyan, and something that we really need to I believe put an emphasis on, given that artificial intelligence is here to stay, and there's really a push, especially in the urban areas, to incorporate technologies as part of the learning experience. But that is not to say that it shouldn't be also be made available in other parts of the country, and that's where I will go into the challenges later on. But I wanted to mention that at least for, let's say, for medical students, medical residents, surgical residents, fellows, clinical clerks, those students, there would be a need to leverage social media platforms to engage those learners. Hindi lang po siya more for entertainment. If you are able to harness the value that's brought by social media, that will help you understand kung ano po yung mga that would be much more, let's say, enticing and easily retainable for the students. So let's say there are efforts to build websites or to build social media, let's say looking into the aging process or maybe the reverse aging process. So if you are, let's say, a basic sciences teacher, you could potentially use artificial intelligence and that platform to say, if you are if your topic is on physiology, this is how your organs age. If you let's say smoke tobacco, or let's say you don't have enough sleep, this is the probability that you'll be able to reach this particular appearance much earlier. And number two, also utilizing virtual reality and augmented reality when offering training opportunities. So a lot of these also have been to answer the question, is there a way for medical students to, let's say, if there is a shortage of cadavers and this is what they experience during COVID po, no? Siyempre, marami pong namamatay. Hindi, ayaw mo naman na nag-aaral ka ng anatomy sa recently na nagka-COVID. What can virtual reality and augmented reality provide for you in terms of augmenting your own training opportunities? Okay, so with that, although that is not to say that it will completely replace the actual feel of doing your anatomical dissections, but short of having that and being able to address the medical safety concerns, yun po will be the virtual reality, augmented reality are the best alternatives po dyan. Creating simulations for experiential learning, also dependent on a lot of variables, but on the technologies that will be regarded. And if you want to understand the value of blockchain, whether the use of blockchain for electronic medical records so that the integrity is maintained, you're able to trace the provenance of where changes are made, who made them, and where they are right now. That could also form part of it. If you are the type who's looking into where does this bakuna na itutusok ko po sa batang ito ngayon, dahil nagro-rotate po kami ngayon sa barangay 143 para sa aming family medicine rotation, saan po kaya to nanggaling, paano po ito nakaabot sa amin? That entire logistics and supply chain system, if that was part of your question, you could also leverage technologies. And if blockchain was part of it, are there applications for technologies such as blockchain for that one? And then using generative AI, especially large language models po, no? So ChatGPT is just an example, but there are other large language models like Google's Bard. I think there are other companies looking into this chatbot that's mostly very good at mimicking the human interaction, and how we could wisely generate those outputs from artificial intelligence. Okay, so hindi nyo pa natatanong, meron din po tayong mga challenges and ethical considerations that we need to put into. So so even though we have this technology such as ChatGPT, it doesn't mean that we are out of the woods in terms of making sure that we don't need to think of such concerns as privacy and bias. So part of it is making sure that yung challenges and concerns, number one, so ito po, we've already addressed this one, the need to reskill the global workforce in the next 3 years due to artificial intelligence. Part of it also based on the study by the computing giant IBM, and addressing the concerns about AI in education. Are you inserting your own set of biases so that yung pag-aaral po ng mga bata is geared towards this way or that way? Are you inserting possibly revisionist history if you're teaching high school or college students, just because that's how you try to input it in ChatGPT? So that's another concern also. Data privacy, if there was a way for you to go ahead and hack certain systems that are fully dependent on their on having good integrity and making sure that there's non-repudiation of the data that's contained on them, and making sure of equitable access to technology and digital skills. So very important po yung last part na yon, is because we don't want technology, the availability of technology, be a contributor dun sa digital divide na meron po tayo. So for those who are working towards equitable access to technology and digital skills, that really is a part and parcel of what should be considered as part of ethical considerations, and trying to make sure that what is available in other parts of the country, or in most parts of the country, will also be available where you are, with the assumption that you're working towards better digital skills, reskilling or upskilling. Part of it also, and this, I think hindi po siya masyado na pag-uusapan po, no? Pero if you are, let's say, part of the workforce already, let's say part of the, so you're a medical intern, or you're medical or surgical resident, or a fellow, sometimes that's pagmamadali po, you may be exposing records inadvertently by just leaving your account open in that area, or those who would be who would want to incorporate, let's say, ChatGPT to be able to read long narrative reports on interpretations for imaging or for laboratory, that also could, if you're uploading sensitive personal information, that could also form part of it. So that's part of privacy concerns. Amplifying the bias that you've already inputted, kasi you're inputting po your own, for you, what are the factors that come into play, and how, and based on that, the model that would be of the large language models, how those churn out their own results and what vulnerabilities are there. So part and parcel of this would be the need to mitigate those risks, such as having secure data storage, diversifying the data sets, and having a robust methodology for artificial intelligence testing. And part of this also is leveraging AI for enhanced healthcare cybersecurity, identifying threats from the outside. Using artificial intelligence, are you able to do behavioral analysis? Let's say if user 1, 2, 3, 4 has been has always been leaving his or her workstation open, or has had multiple reports of hacks for that one, then that could point you to the need to reskill and reorient those types of trainees or learners. Anomaly detection, also part and parcel, and automating the incident response, and making sure that those who need to know are informed well ahead or in time, and integration of those with their existing systems. So very, very important po in making sure that when you're integrating systems, the vulnerabilities that are part of one system, because you're integrating it, you're essentially opening up the other system which may not have those sets of vulnerabilities to the same vulnerability dapat, dahil po meron lang po kayo dito sa isang system na ini-integrate nyo. So that's part of what should be looked at in the healthcare space. And then finally, strengthening cybersecurity through enhanced monitoring and prevention in order to prevent ransomware attacks or mga hacks, predictive analytics on where artificial intelligence can help with regards to the entire hospital, real-time threat intelligence and reduction of response time because of the quicker turnaround, and educational initiatives, making sure that you are able to strengthen healthcare cybersecurity, not just for your own competency, but for your institutional affiliation as well. Okay? So future possibilities, I listed here 3 different examples, and looking at here, if a good question to ask would be, wouldn't it be exciting if we had the chance to combine this holographic monitor, sort of holographic monitor, and virtual reality environment to be able to understand the condition of the patient further and be able to more accurately pinpoint kung saan po yung sakit niya. So those could be realities very, very soon. AI-guided interaction. The lower part of the presentation deals with if you could imagine doing your epidemiological study and your analysis in a laboratory that has all of these. That's something that is commendable and will really leapfrog our work that was done, especially during yung part po yung sa FASTER when we collaborated with the Ateneo for that one, the Ateneo group for that one po. So making sure that those are in the pipeline. So understanding the epidemiological, let's say, trends and through this type of setup with virtual reality environment will be maybe very, very helpful for future learners. Okay. Okay, yun na pala. That was my last slide to present po. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Susie.
Wow, thank you so much, Raymond. Ako, palakpakan natin si Raymond. My goodness. Parang sabi ko, Raymond, ang dami mo palang tinatagong mga technical information dyan tungkol sa artificial intelligence. No, seriously though, I thought it was a great presentation. For me, who's somebody who's not very familiar with it, it drew my interest and I think the interest of the audience. So I think later on we'll have a little bit more time to interact and have questions and answers. But thank you so much. This was a great presentation. So you'll see in the chat and on your screen the emoticons and all of that in appreciation of your presentation. All right, let's go to our next reactor, who is former director of the National Telehealth Center and is currently program director of the MBA in Health program at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. He's also the innovation lead of the Center for Research and Innovation at the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health. Please give a warm virtual welcome to Dr. A.D. Ace Domingo. A.D., welcome.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that very kind introduction. Good to see you again after so long.
I know.
Thank you, Dr. Raymond and Dr. Susie for inviting me to be a reactor in this very popular webinar series. And congratulations on your 160th episode. And good afternoon to everyone. In the words of Dr. Raymond, saan mang panig ng daigdig kayo naroroon. And truly an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you. Thank you for that wonderful talk, Dr. Raymond. Very comprehensive and certainly very insightful for our viewers. And AI is definitely a very timely and a very relevant topic. I believe it's a technology that will be even more transformative than the internet itself. And even other services which have gone before it, such as Google. And from the talk, I would take away 3 learnings. And the first one, number 1, we should embrace ChatGPT and other AI technologies. Notice I did not say that we should not fear it. I believe a healthy dose of fear and skepticism is always warranted of any new technology or innovation. And we have seen this time and again in history. So for example, when photography was invented in the 1990s, artists and painters thought it would put them out of business. And when Photoshop was invented in 1987, it was the turn of photographers to become fearful. And I believe we should approach AI in much the same way. We must think about guardrails in using AI to ensure that it is private, it's secure, and that it is ethical. We should also be skeptical, of course. We should not trust anything that it says. So in the poll, I think a number of people already talked about that. Dr. Raymond also talked about that. So for example, if you ask ChatGPT a question which happened after September 2021, it will always give a wrong answer. So for example, for them, the president is still different, the NBA champion is still different, and that's because it was trained last in September 2021. So Microsoft search engine Bing is actually better in this respect, but it has its own strengths and weaknesses. But Bing also uses ChatGPT as well. So we shouldn't trust it. Easier said than done when today, whether we realize it or not, we take whatever we see on the internet, on Google at face value. To those of us who drive, we trust that the route that Waze or Google Maps gives us is the correct one, and we usually don't question it, sometimes to detrimental results, okay? So nonetheless, we must embrace and accept it. And number two, not only do we have to embrace and accept it, I think we have to use it. Because for sure, our patients will use it. Physicians are well acquainted with the phenomenon of Dr. Google, where patients go into their clinics with their tablets and with their iPads and sometimes print out saying, "Doc, this is what Google says about my condition. What do you think?" Now doctors will have to adapt because patients will now reference Dr. ChatGPT. And on the part of medical education, definitely it should be used by both students and teachers. So one prominent educator from Wharton named Ethan Mollick calls this AI mandatory, meaning he's mandating the use of AI, not just for students, but teachers as well. So definitely one mandatory skill that we will see in the future, in the near future, would be something called prompt engineering. And that's really trying to ask the correct question or the correct request or the correct prompt from ChatGPT. And that in and of itself is an art. And it has particular skills to make sure that what ChatGPT outputs is the correct output or the best output that it can provide. On the part of teachers, ChatGPT and generative AI can be used to create syllabi, questions, case studies, patient cases. And these can be highly customized based on the level of the student audience, whether you're talking to kindergarteners, to medical students, to seasoned professionals for executive education. All of that depends on the correct prompt being asked of ChatGPT. ChatGPT can also build synthetic patients or virtual patient simulations. But I think the most revolutionary effect that ChatGPT can have for students and generative AI is that it can become a very powerful and personalized tutor. So before the advent of colleges, the way that people learned was being an apprentice to a tradesman or a tradesmith or a master. And because of the advent of mass education, now we have class sizes in the 30s, sometimes in the 50s, and we have lost that art. And I think ChatGPT can fulfill that role of becoming a personalized tutor. Studies have shown that students with tutors perform better if they have a tutor. And one such advocate of this belief is Sal Khan. So he's the founder of the Khan Academy, the popular online learning website and YouTube channel. So they're one of actually the first early adopters of ChatGPT. They've been using it since last year, and they were one of the first organizations that was tapped by ChatGPT. So they have their own AI chatbot tutor, and definitely we will see more of this come online with other online learning systems as well. Lastly, definitely, we have to adapt to it. So the title of this webinar is about the paradigm shift because of AI in medical education. And one shift or adaptation that teachers will need to do is to implement more real-world learning. So I think this was talked briefly about in the poll. We've talked about more assessments or different assessments. I believe assessments will have to change. So definitely the value of essays or reports, especially those that students will take home, will not be diminished. And the way we will assess students will also have to change. I'm a faculty also, and my challenge is always how to devise a question, which is what I would term quote unquote Google proof. So we know that in the during the pandemic, it was quite difficult for us to ensure that our students do not have another browser window where they can ask the same question on Google. So it's quite difficult, of course, a challenge, but I assure you it can be done. But now we don't. We have to develop questions which aren't just Google proof. They also now have to be ChatGPT proof. So there are strategies, I believe, to achieve this. Definitely, there will have to be more in-person assessments and proctoring. There will be a new role for simulation. So I'm a firm believer in learning by doing. And the way to really understand how something works is, and the best way to do this is to create it, whether it's a recipe or a mobile application or a patient simulation. So in conclusion, I think we should embrace AI, we should use it, and we should adapt to it. So to end, there's always this debate of whether AI will replace humans. So we don't know yet the answer to that or how that debate will play out. But one thing is certain is that humans who use AI will replace humans who don't. So thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you so much, AD. Wonderful, wonderful insight and response. And thank you for your nice, insightful reaction. Again, you'll see the thanks from our audience and the emoticons that are coming out. I have lots of points I want to pick up, and I think both of you have brought up very what should I say, very interesting perspectives on AI and its potential use to the benefit of human beings. So I think we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. For right now, okay, we are going to ask you to open your cameras, so both AD and Raymond, but we're going to take a quick break for a public service announcement from TVUP. TVUP, please take it away.
Ay, ate, gusto ko nang lumabas at makipaglaro.
Eh di ba magkakasakit daw tayo kapag lumabas?
Magbe-face mask naman ako eh.
Kahit na, hanggat wala daw tayong injection, hindi tayo pwedeng lumabas at maglaro.
Ano ba yan? Takot pa naman ako sa injection.
Huwag ka mag-alala. Parang kagat lang daw ng langgam yun.
Talaga? Eh, natatakot pa rin ako.
Eh di sabay na lang tayo.
Pa-injection?
Oo, syempre. Loves kita eh. Para makapaglaro na tayo.
Dahil mahal ko kayo, magpapabakuna ako.
Kaya mga bata, magpabakuna na kayo.
Stay safe and stay well. Mga bata, magpasama na sa Bakuna Center.
Thank you very much. The COVID Communication PSA is one of the many creative outputs of sub-COVID's team to push for COVID-19 vaccinations. Please share this video clip with all your social media networks. Stay safe and stay well. Magpasama na sa Bakuna Center. Okay, so we've got Raymond and AD here, and I saw some questions in the Q&A, but I'd like to ask both of you first. In a way, AI is not a new thing, right? If you think about calculators that add or multiply for us, or you think about video games that we play against, these all require computers that are thinking. So the question in the end AD was asking was, will human beings be replaced? And I think when we think about that throughout human history, no matter what the technological advancement is, human beings always come out better than the machines. Okay, the thing is, I think the controversy now is because we are now looking at tools that help students perform better in school and perform better in fields like medicine. So this is my question. Given the availability of the technology, right? And AD was already talking about, and Raymond was also talking about, there's a way of doing this, but it requires Google proofing or ChatGPT proofing. It requires different ways of teaching. So the impact is really on the teaching. Because I remember long ago, right? You would never have an open book exam, isn't it? But when I started teaching back in the day, I was always an open book person because I thought, even if you have the book in front of you, if you don't know what I'm asking you, you will not be able to answer the question. So, what is the implication for future teaching, given that the generation of teachers are not really the ones who are IT savvy? I think that's where the gap is, di ba? Kasi students will be using it because it's part of their repertoire of social skills, but the teachers are not. So, what do we do about that? Maybe I'm gonna ask Raymond first and then AD. Raymond, ikaw muna.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Susie, for that question. No? And part of it is really well, it's there's an adage in research, yung perish or die, in terms of being able to adapt in how the research language has made it. But in terms of teaching, it's very, very different. So while artificial intelligence has its potential in terms of augmenting yung mga ito, those teachers provide value in terms of the guidance, the mentoring, and the inspiration that they provide the students. So they can become facilitators of learning, fostering critical thinking. That part of it has a human element that cannot be, well, at least for now, cannot be replicated by the machine. The creativity part of it, meaning, so even if there are those artificial intelligence tools like Stable Diffusion, and other tools that look into, let's say, yung mga nanalo na po ng mga art contests that are sort of prestigious, or at least in that part of the world, in the United States, that's prestigious, no? And really looking into, are you able to put out your own creative juices as part of it? Really, there are skills that cannot be replicable, especially those that require collaborative or multidisciplinary, and part of it, just because we had our one of those webinars very, very recently, is in the area of medicine, and how you're able to harmoniously use technologies when you are teaching your students. But also, just to emphasize the fact that making sure that teachers are not left behind in terms of being able to leverage all of these tools. So as mentioned, Dr. Susie, you alluded to these types of machines being able to, so being at our disposal, being available very, very early on. It has just advanced to a point wherein they can simulate human cognitive skills. That part of it, really, how do you make sure that those tasks that are, let's say, mundane and repetitive, that takes up a lot of your time, you can sort of farm it out dun sa mga AI technologies na yun, and those that require really much more deeper intellectual understanding, requires more people collaborating on answering that particular question, making sure that the students are able to ask themselves critically on how to analyze a particular, let's say, grand rounds case or interesting case. Those your time is better suited for those types of tasks rather than those that are more repetitive in nature.
AD, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, ma'am. I like what you mentioned about textbook proof. I'm with you there. I mean, having it Google proof, Chat GPT proof. So that means that teachers should refrain from asking questions which are rote memory. They should test really the critical thinking of the students. So definitely teachers will have to use it. I mean, I think there's no way getting around it, in much the same way that in the past, I mean, teachers were not using Microsoft Office. Now, teachers have to use Microsoft Excel, Word, PowerPoint. So I think it's going to be a baseline. It'll be a requirement because students will definitely use it. I mean, there's nothing.
Right.
You can stop them. You can prevent them from using it in the classroom, but definitely outside, at home, they will use it, and I think for good reason. And it really is a big benefit. It's a big boon. I myself use ChatGPT heavily to write syllabi, research proposals, policies. I mean, it's very useful once you learn how to really unlock it. So I think that's the only way to do it. And we would have to learn that. Again, as I mentioned, the skill of prompt engineering will now become commonplace. So I think that's really, really very important. I think on the part of the teacher, definitely we do not just have the expertise or the competence or the experience. Definitely we understand the pedagogical theory and concepts behind it. So for example, you can ask ChatGPT to create a question which requires this pedagogical concept called interleaving, for example, or you can ask it to create an analogy. You can also ask it to explain how it came up with that answer. So I think to go back to what Dr. Raymond mentioned about it not being able to replace the human element of creativity, I agree. It will not be able to do that, but it comes very, 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 very close to it. And Dr. Raymond mentioned the example of it winning art contests. Just recently, this year in 2023, an AI generated picture won first place in one category in one of the most prestigious photography contests in the world, the Sony World Photography Award. So, and they were able to fool judges into thinking that this was actually made by a real person. So while we say that it cannot be replicated, I mean, it comes very, very, very close to it. For all intents and purposes, I mean, diba, perception is reality. If we perceive it to be made by a human and it looks like it was made by a human, when in fact it was made by an AI, then we can say that maybe it can replicate the human creativity. So I think that's where we, there's a lot of discussion behind that to say that, yes, there's some parts of the human persona that cannot be replicated, but it can really come close to simulating it. And it's very, very, very convincing. Not just words, music, images, paintings. So I know it's very, very impressive. Personally, I'm a pragmatist in terms of technology, which is odd considering that I am in this field. But it's really the first time that I've seen a technology which I believe can really be transformative.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a person who studied the work of Howard Gardner on multiple intelligence, right? And his theory is that there are several types of intelligence. So cognitive reasoning and the ability to use language is one. But there is musical intelligence. There is kinesthetic intelligence, the ability to move your body. Okay, there is nature intelligence, which is your ability to grow plants or take care of living things. So I think when we think about the definition of the human being and what we're good at, the cognitive part of it is only a small part of that, right? And so I'm trying to think, right, if AI is useful for cognitive education, then we should be using the time that we save from having to research, having to, do so many things that are just knowledge or information based, and use our time in agriculture, in taking care of children, in taking care of older persons, in more of the things that make us human. So I just want to hear your reaction to that, because intelligence as it is defined in AI is mainly about cognition. But I'm someone who believes that people are intelligent in many, many different ways. So some are good at this cognitive language, mathematical, etc. But they're two left feet. They can't dance. You know what I mean? Or you give them plants and they kill them. So I don't know. What do you think, Raymond?
Very important questions, no, Dr. Susie. I think it really depends on trying to strike that and reach that harmonious balance that we have. So while artificial intelligence has been helpful with regards to, let's say, the cognitive part of the education and helping empower us to redirect efforts to activities or endeavors, like you mentioned, that show more of our human side. I think it will help us to try and understand how, by doing so, eventually it reshapes our society in terms of are we really maximizing all of the technological advancements? So not just in AI, so we have let's say the agricultural machines. Is there a better way for us to, based on data analytics, spread the seeds, or what fertile soil is available, which geographic area should be recommended and be made into policy so that we free up the agricultural lands para any commercial or let's say manufacturing na mga efforts, let's say putting in power plants or putting in buildings, malls, etc. in those areas that have been pre-identified as having fertile soil and provide the most optimal situation in terms of agricultural security and food security. How do we penalize those that go and enact those types of activities? That would really help us, but it really requires us to have a better handle of what those tools are, and based on those insights that are data driven, we also have our action oriented plans, making sure that we have our priorities straight. Let's say we are prioritizing food security, we are prioritizing mitigating our risks for disasters, etc. So making sure that it helps shape the society in and of itself, while also making sure that we are emphasizing those qualities that make human interaction irreplaceable, and showing that we really care. And the other side of it is making sure that we're also taking into consideration from an objective point of view, and with the help of AI, that those activities that are that we have planned out will be carried out in an optimal fashion. Ayun po.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raymond. AD, ikaw, what do you think?
I like what you said, Dr. Susie, about the role of technology in freeing up our time to do other things, to be more productive, to explore really human potential. That's been the role of technology for millennia. Fire, food preservation, irrigation. It's allowed the ancients to explore philosophy, music, art, literature, things that they could not have done in the past when they were hunter-gatherers. So I think in much the same way in the modern world is very much the same. I mean, technology still does the same role, but I think the biggest challenge right now is that technology has now resulted in great inequity. And the concentration of wealth has now become even more concentrated because of technology in particular countries or even particular individuals. And I think that's the great risk that we have to mitigate. One of my favorite authors, talks about this very much, Nassim Taleb. He talks about that the world has changed from a linear world to one which is exponential, where viruses can spread exponentially, where financial disasters can spread exponentially. So we live in such a world right now, and that's now made possible through technology. And I think AI will also will play a role in that. Yes, I think I believe it can give us more free time to be more productive, to really explore our human potential. But it can also pose risks in creating greater inequality among those who have no access to this technology.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong point, on the inequality, and what Raymond was saying, how we apply or how we use AI for the survival of humanity. If I don't mean to be too philosophical about it, but you know what? I was just thinking, it becomes what should I say? It becomes threatening once we fix our notion of education as transferring knowledge or information rather than developing skills of people. And that's where I think the problem lies. I think much of current education is about knowledge. It's about using knowledge, gathering knowledge, and being knowledgeable. But actually, to survive in our world today with climate change, with conflict, with COVID-19, what you need are skills. And what you need is resilience. Diba? It's very internal, and it's your ability to adapt. So I think if this will help our educational system shift from just what do you know to do you, how do you do things, then I think it makes better human beings. So it's threatening with an old pedagogical view of education. That's just my That's just my takeaway on this, because I agree with you, AD, that every new technology is always uh, controversial. Like when the radio was introduced or television was introduced, right? It was like, this is gonna destroy everything. People won't read anymore. But that's not true. So every new technology that's introduced in the world, human beings will always rise above it. That's my view as a humanist. But I think this one really will have to challenge our core beliefs about what schools are about. And we were talking about this recently, that at the University of the Philippines there are hundreds of summa cum laudes and hundreds of magna cum laudes, or thousands, I don't know, right? And the thought was that it's because of all this access. And so if we are assessing people based only on what they know and not how they do things, then we're going to have a lopsided world, right? With many knowledgeable people who don't do anything except know things. So anyway, I didn't mean to comment too much on that. Let me pick up some of the questions because Raymond's not going to do this to me. Okay. Joseph Tortona, can AI relate to the emotional and psychological side of medical history taking, the intricacies of body language, and the delicate process of the physical examination, and how to interpret data from all of these to come up with a working diagnosis and differentials? Okay, guys, what do you think?
Ako, I was I was watching this webinar by the AI for Good, which is a webinar set up by the UN SDG folks also, but making sure that they collaborated with International Telecommunications Union. And part of it was that there was this futurist who mentioned that I think 25 years ago, he predicted that there will be ChatGPT, something when he described it, it's how ChatGPT is by the year 2026. So he's 3 years off lang in terms of his prediction.
Okay.
And for this particular question of Dr. Joseph Tortona, that was also asked of him, when do you think machines will start to have like emotional perception, or at least be able to relate? So his projection is that by the year, I think 15 years from now, or maybe even faster than that, earlier than that, the machines could be able to do that maybe as early as the next decade, the 2030s daw po. So I would say that in terms of right now, technologies, AI is not able to do that part of it. But if you wanted, let's say, an AI to read your narrative reports, your history of present illness, and to come up with a particular set of treatment or order sets that you wanted to, or let's say what would you advise that particular patient, they could do that, but not in the way that you feel should be done. In the how of the what could be answered, but not the how of it. So, and I'd also like to add here that one anecdote wherein I always find funny, wherein doctors use their virtual presence to be able, and I think this was a study, they compared doctors who delivered sad news of someone dying via virtual presence, meaning via Viber or via FaceTime or kung ano man, versus actually showing up at the side of the relatives and saying that your mother, your grandmother, has died of complications, ganyan. So obviously there's a clear preference from the relative side to receiving that news in person rather than through a computer, in that sense, Dr. Susan.
Yeah. I think this reminds me of Hawaii so much, right? Because for them, for the Hawaiians, for many people in the Pacific, they rely less on how they see things and more on how they feel, how you interact with them. So they'll say to you, that person has no aloha, parang walang soul, walang spirit. They're not looking at how they look. It's the sensing. It's the same way that Filipinos somehow know that somebody entered the room, even if you can't see. Diba? O kaya meron kayong na-meet na parang you have this bad vibe about this person. These are qualities for me that are very, very important in real life. Kasi again, no? And so for you, for the person, Raymond, na you have to tell someone that somebody died, right? That requires a lot of empathy. I think that's the word, empathy. And this brings me to the question here of Japet. Jafet. Okay. With the advent of AI, how can teachers ensure that we graduate medical students who are compassionate and ethical? AD, sa'yo to.
So definitely, AI cannot relate to the emotional and psychological side. It cannot do physical examination, but all the others, it comes very close to doing it. To your point, Dr. Susie, AI has no soul. So what it is really very, very good at is essentially predicting what the next sequence of words will be. And in fact, what the next sequence of paragraphs will be. It can write an entire novel, a report. So it's very, very good at that. It can't reason. It has no soul. It has essentially no creativity, but it comes very, very close to simulating it. So definitely the human aspect, it cannot be replaced by AI. So much of our medical education is really focused on our values formation, how we empathize with patients. AI will never replace that. And I think that is something that will come even more into the fore in the coming years, because AI can now do everything else so very well. So I think that compassion, bedside manners, of course, and being able to give news or empathize with the patient, definitely that those will be skills aside from prompt engineering, which will also be essential as well. In fact, even more important in the years to come.
Yeah, no, very interesting. I remember when we were interns, di ba? We used to spend so much time writing down the case history and then rewriting it on another chart and then summarizing it on the next day and so on, which with the advent of electronic medical records, you have more time to think, right? Because you don't have to do all that thing. So I think it's something like this. We just need to find the applications, the proper applications, and that if there's time that's freed up, it has to go to more humanistic kind of activities, no? So that our medical students don't become just like a brain with an AI attached to it. Okay, wait, there's another question here. Okay, again from Joseph. I think this is a good question. Do you think that AI will be able to simulate sensory inputs like tactile inputs or smell, or I guess motion is easy for it to detect, no? But how about the other senses?
For sensory, especially for tactile, that's already been done, Dr. Susie. But for others, especially the emotional part, and maybe even if a higher order will be on the psychological part, very, very difficult for that to be done. Even for smell, there have been attempts to make sure that they're able to simulate how the olfactory system is able to to really be captured by machines, but it really requires other technological peripherals for that to happen. So for the AI to do its own analysis, it has to be able to capture the data. But if you're not able to capture that data, very, very difficult to do that. So to answer the question in terms of the physical exam, let's say if you're able to, I don't know, the image that comes to mind here is that we're doing a telemedicine consultation, but part of the consultation is having this parang virtual torso of a doctor na may ilong or something, and just trying to see, pinapalpate ka, etc., or trying to auscultate you something. I think that's pretty farther in the future rather than something that's really closer to reality right now, Dr. Susan.
AD, what did you want to say? Parang you wanted to say something.
I'll never say never. The chat people had always envisioned something like ChatGPT becoming a reality. Again, what Dr. Raymond mentioned by 2026. Sometimes some of the best experts said that sometime in the 2050s, no one really expected it to be released this soon. In fact, it was supposed to be released much earlier had it not been for the pandemic. The technology which is used to develop ChatGPT, called the transformer, was only invented in 2017. So, I mean, I will not be surprised if other technologies become online much sooner than we expect it to be. So, but definitely, I would think it's farther off than what most people would think.
Yeah, I mean, I remember this movie. I can't remember what it was, but there was a movie where, but all I recall is that it was Leonardo DiCaprio, right? So it's like they had this machine, which is like a scanner, and anybody with illness or injury just goes into the machine, and the machine just fixes you, right? If you need suture, if you need whatever, if you need to remove a tumor, it's all done inside that thing. And so I don't know. I mean, I agree with you, AD. Anything's possible. Never say never. I think we have yet to outdo ourselves as scientists and as thought leaders in all of creation, right? So I think it's an exciting time, but we should all be more well versed in what this all means and what the implications are. And I just want to thank the two of you, because we're running out of time, for the time you spent preparing and for sharing your knowledge and your skills in talking about artificial intelligence. So we're going to go to our fun quiz. Oh, Raymond, siguro naman you can do the fun quiz, no?
Pwede yan, pwede yan. Let's go.
Sige. Ikaw
Can we
na.
have the questions on the... Okay. Okay, so for our first question, okay. So ano po ang tamang kasagutan dito? The correct answer is letter B. So what's the one potential benefit of integrating AI into education? It's providing personalized learning experiences. In the Zoom, 64% of those who answered chose letter B, with the next closest at 21%, letter A, reducing the need for human teachers entirely. But in Slido, very thankful that they're able to capture po that the correct answer is letter B. For question number 2,
Go ahead.
how can AI contribute to educational assessment? Again, ang sagot po ay letter B, na tama naman po ang pagkakakuha dito sa Slido. In Zoom, 72% chose letter B, which states providing instant and personalized feedback to students. And 23%, which is the next highest, is replacing all traditional forms of assessment. Go ahead, Dr. Susie.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to give Raymond and AD a minute or two to compose their parting words for the audience, and we will be now fielding in our evaluation. So can we put the evaluation forms on the screen, please? Okay, wait. Teka, I can't see it, Raymond. TVUP,
Not
can
yet,
we have
not
the
yet,
evaluation
not yet.
form? Wala pa. Okay.
Let me...
Ako na, Raymond, kasi ikaw yung evaluate.
There we go.
Okay. The panelists demonstrated thorough knowledge of the topic. So this is you have a 4-point Likert scale: strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. The panelists were well prepared and organized. Okay. The panelists spoke clearly and audibly. The panelists used appropriate language with technical and medical jargons adequately explained. And the panelists contributed to new perspectives and knowledge on managing various key issues. All right. So we are not going to close the poll. You can continue to answer. There is no separate evaluation. This is it. And so we are going now back to our speakers. We're going to start with AD. AD, what are your parting words?
So thank you very much, Dr. Susie. As I mentioned, I mean, it's a perilous time, I would believe, but at the same time, as you mentioned, it's a very exciting time. I mean, very exciting, a very great time to be an educator, a physician, a technologist. And I just like to leave the audience with the 3 learnings that I mentioned a while ago. We must embrace AI, we must use AI, and we must adapt to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. A.D. Domingo from the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health. Okay, let's go to Raymond. Raymond, ikaw naman.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. So first and foremost, maraming salamat po sa lahat. And my parting words would be integration of AI in education is really not about replacing the humans, but rather augmenting their capabilities and making sure that the educators are able to create an adaptive and dynamic classroom that caters to the students' strengths and needs. Number 2, the future object of education is more collaborative. Collaborative in the sense that humans and AI working hand in hand to create that engaging learning environment instead of one replacing the other or one dominating over the other. And finally, AI education, especially when we are talking about deploying artificial intelligence models, you have to put front and center ethics, privacy and cybersecurity, and transparency, because in education we're shaping the minds and the whats and the hows in terms of their learning of our learners. So it's the responsibility of the teachers, but also of everyone, to ensure that fairness and equity are our guideposts in terms of implementation. Over to you, Dr. Susie.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Raymond. And thank you both for your time, for your wisdom, and for sharing with us. Everybody is appreciating such an interesting topic and such a timely topic. So we have the results of our evaluation. Maybe we can put that on the screen. Okay. So we have, very, very, very good results. 96% said that the panelists demonstrated thorough knowledge of the topic. 92% said the panelists were well prepared. 98% said that they spoke clearly and audibly. 94% said that they used appropriate language and explained jargon. And 92% said they contributed to new perspectives and knowledge. So thank you very much, Dr. A.D. Domingo and Dr. Raymond Sarmiento, for being the experts for our show today. We have a brief synthesis and closing from Dr. Dion Sakdalan. Dion, take it away.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear po.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Doc Susie, Doc Raymond, and our expert panelists, and good afternoon to everyone. So this afternoon, we hold webinar number 160, and we tackled the topic of AI in medical education. So we veered from the medical conditions that we've been discussing in the past months, and we focused on an emerging outcome of advanced technology that may potentially change the landscape of medical education or education in general. So thank you to our distinguished panelists who are experts in this field. Of course, our first presenter was our very energetic host and expert in telehealth, Dr. Raymond Sarmiento. So he started by defining artificial intelligence. He said that this is a simulation of human processes through machines. So he mentioned that it's the ability of a computer or a computer-controlled robot to perform tasks usually done by humans, such as playing games, driving cars, explaining, integrating information, computing, etc. Now, he focused on how AI can be used in education. So according to Dr. Raymond, AI may be used to develop personalized learning. And this can be done through adaptive learning, intelligent tutoring systems, natural language processing, using data-driven insights, the use of multimodal learning, and using individualized learning paths, and through personalized recommendations, assessments, and feedback. Dr. Raymond said also that AI may be used in student assessments, and this can be maximized by AI analyzing the students' performance, including detecting how they answer, their patterns of answering, their strengths, and their weaknesses. And AI can provide this in real time, providing teachers with instant feedback where they can work on to better improve their students. Dr. Raymond gave recommendations on how AI may be used in revolutionizing assessments. He said that We should invest on research to identify where and how bias occurs in testing, invest on development of new kinds of technology-driven assessments, and to invest on teacher professional development so they can adapt to these eventually. Dr. Raymond also listed several ways on how humans and AI may collaborate to enhance the learning experience. He said we should harness social media, we should use virtual and augmented reality, we should use simulations for experiential learning, and understand the use of blockchain technology. Towards the end, Dr. Raymond talked about the challenges in the use of AI. He mentioned building the capacity of the workforce to adapt to these technologies. He also touched on the ethical considerations, particularly of data privacy and equitable access to technology. And thus, we should try to mitigate these risks, including the concern for healthcare cybersecurity. Dr. Raymond ended by giving us a glimpse of what's in store for the future. And this included the use of holographic lectures, the use of virtual reality environments, and AI-guided interactions. Our reactor was Dr. A.D. Ace Domingo. He's the program director of the MBA in Health program at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. So he highlighted his 3 learnings from Dr. Raymond's talk, and I think this was the parting words of Dr. Domingo as well. He said, we need to embrace ChatGPT and other AI technologies. We should not totally trust it, but be critical on the information it provides. He said, we need to use it in clinical practice and medical education, but we must also equip ourselves to maximize its use as a potentially powerful personalized tutor and teaching assistant. Lastly, he said, we should adapt to it. We need to revise our teaching and assessment strategies, keeping in mind that we have technologies while allowing maximal learning potential for our learners. So he ended with this interesting statement that may stimulate us to take a step further in understanding these emerging technology. Dr. A.D. Domingo said, humans who use AI will replace humans who don't, but AI cannot yet replace humans in terms of the human aspects of feeling, being compassionate, and having empathy for our patients. So with that, I end this summary. Good afternoon again to everyone.
Thank you very much. That's Dr. Dion Sakdalan, our coordinator for training at the Philippine General Hospital. Okay, so next week, naku, don't miss it, ha? And please invite others to come. We are expecting full house. We are starting what's called Health Lead, a Health Leadership Forum. And this is in line with the Philippine bid for the position of Regional Director for the Western Pacific region. And yours truly, as the candidate for the Philippines, is starting up this discussion which will involve leaders from different parts of our region, from Asia and the Pacific, to talk about very current issues. Okay, so next week, you will have Dr. Ted Herbosa talking about Haiyan. Then we have the governor of Guam. We'll talk about Typhoon Mawar. Remember, there was a typhoon in Guam. They did not have electricity for 3 weeks. So kaya sabi ko nga, paano yung AI pag walang kuryente? But this is the reality when you have disasters. Plus, we have 2 experts from Hawaii who will talk about the Maui fires. I'm sure you've seen this on social media, on TikTok, on Facebook, whatever it is. And you're going to hear from them what happened and what kind of leadership is needed to respond to these catastrophes that we have never seen in the history of humankind. So please join us next Friday, that's September 1. If you're a teacher, invite your students, invite the other people in the hospitals. Apart from having the Secretary of Health with us, we do have these excellent speakers from Guam and Hawaii. And I know that we will all learn from that episode we're going to have next week. So that's our 61st webinar. Oh my God, Raymond, ang dami na. Okay, before we conclude our program, All Stop Death webinars are archived for viewing at the TVUP YouTube channel for your convenience. And we understand that everyone is so busy that we have some selected presentations that will feature parts of the webinars in what we call the SCD shorts. So you can watch them at your convenience at TVUP YouTube channel. Okay, so Raymond, do you want to close?
Yes, Dr. Susie, thank you so
Yeah.
much. So, maraming salamat po and thank you to those who stayed and took the time to understand more about the topic at hand. We look forward to your participation next week, on our next Friday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. It's a date.
Together we can stop preventable deaths.
So keep safe, keep healthy, and see you online.